Good evening and welcome to the causes of World War II and the Berlin 1936 Olympics. Tonight we'll be taking you back to 1932 to 37 for a special report on the early days of Hitler's rise to power in Germany and ways it affected the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games.
Die Gegner werfen uns Nationalsozialisten vor und mir insbesondere, dass wir intolerante, unverträgliche Menschen seien. Wir wollten, sagen sie, mit anderen Parteien nicht arbeiten.
His rise to power all started in 1932 when Adolf Hitler decided to run for the role of president in Germany. He used his propaganda advisor Joseph Goebbels to encourage Germany to support Hitler's campaigns. During his campaign, he ordered Goebbels to put up lots of different Nazi posters all over Germany to gain support. It wasn't just posters that made him gain support, they also used the advances into different types of technology to get across his views to the German people. He did this in particular by using cinema technology. What exactly do you know about the lead up to the Second World War in the years 1932 to 37?
Right, in the years 1932 to 37, I know that England was in depression, quite a bad political situation that was going on there, and we weren't really prepared for war. Germany, with Hitler and that, were trying to improve their economy. They were in a pretty bad economic position. Started to rearm the armed forces, build up the Luftwaffe there with people in charge like Göring and various other sort of well-known German figures there. And they were bringing in national service for both men and women, so they were building up this army. They set up specialist schools that lots of people, children had to go to, which then kind of trained them and educated them in certain ways and developed future soldiers and future leaders for the German army and the German kind of area there.
Another way he used propaganda was through setting up his own newspapers, one of which was called Volkischer Beobachter, translated as Racial Observer. During the Second World War, the paper only reported the good news, and they were not allowed to report any bad news. This was to keep Germans from knowing what was really happening and making them think that they were winning when they were actually losing. By the time of the election on April 10th, 1932, Hitler had won 36% of the vote. This was a 6% increase of the vote in March, but President Hindenburg had won 53% out of the vote against Hitler and the other oppositions. Hindenburg had gained another 7 years in office, but many of the German people didn't like this choice and would have preferred Hitler to be in charge of the country. Can you understand why Hitler did try to make Germany great again after the treatment of Germany in the Treaty of Versailles?
Well, obviously, yeah, because obviously there'd been a bit of humiliation there. They'd had all their sort of land, not all of their land, but a lot of their land taken away and removed, so it kind of weakened their position. So the idea was that he wanted to regain what was formerly theirs and take back and sort of be seen as a force in Europe. Obviously a bit too far and took it to the extremes, but he did have a plan that he was trying to work towards.
In November of 1932, a former chancellor by the name of Franz von Papen helped Hitler form a government so that he could be chancellor. Hitler used his power as chancellor by being verbally aggressive to his opposition and managing him to get them to do what he wanted them to do. Although Hitler had become chancellor through his new government, he was still loyal and had a lot of respect for the president, who was in office until 1934 when he died. After Hindenburg's death, Hitler had made himself Führer of Germany. This was the beginning of Nazi Germany. What happened at the 1936 Olympics, and do you know who Jesse Owens is?
Yes, I do know who Jesse Owens is. He was a black American athlete who won a few medals in some of the events there. But Hitler refused to give him one of the medals because apparently he was an embarrassment to them.
Now, we've seen how Hitler became president of Germany. Let's jump forward a few years to the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games. The Nazis hadn't come into power when the Games were handed to Berlin, and the extremity of Hitler's policies were not widely known outside of Germany. In the years leading up to the Games, many governments had taken the decision to boycott the Games. This was particularly an issue in North America, as many politicians had seen that the Jews had been banned from entering them as a result of their race, because of Hitler had blamed them for the loss of World War I. The head of the American Olympic Committee, Avery Brundage, had stated the very foundation of the modern Olympic revival will be undermined if individual countries are allowed to restrict participation by reason of class, creed or race. Avery Brundage visited the game at Germany, like many of the IOC, to inspect the sporting facilities and to see what the conditions were like for where the athletes were accommodated during the games. After this, he didn't want to boycott the Games and issued another statement saying the Games belong to the athletes and not to the politicians. Although it is thought that Hitler did shake Owens' hand, he did not receive an invite by President Roosevelt to visit the White House because of the segregation at the time in America. Also, when he had won his fourth gold medal, Hitler had refused to hand over the medal due to the fact he was meant to be racially inferior to everyone else. Instead of using the German flag at the Olympic Stadium, swastikas were displayed to show that the symbol and the party were essentially Germany. To show the world that Germany had become one of a kind, Hitler had issued training hours for the German team. This was because they needed to prove that they were better than everyone else and to fit the image of Hitler's Aryan race. At the time of the Olympics, Germany's hero was Lutz Long. He was an athlete who easily fit into Hitler's image of a perfect Aryan. In the Olympics, he won a silver in the long jump, or as it was called then, the broad jump, but clearly didn't have the same success as Owens. And at the 1936 Berlin Olympics, and do you know who Jesse Owens is?
From what I know, I do know who Jesse Owens is, and what I know is that he was a black American athlete who won a medal, and he was basically, Hitler refused to give him the medal for the sport that he had taken part in.
A year after the Games, the Nazis had founded its first concentration camp. This was called Dachau. Before World War II started, some 200,000 people were thought to have been sent there. There were much more camps also set up around eastern Germany as well, such as the infamous Auschwitz in Poland. Even though Hitler hated the Jews, the doctor, Dr. Edward Bloch, who treated his mother, was Jewish, and because of all that this doctor did to try and treat his mother, he was granted permission by Hitler to leave the country and live in America. So, in this programme we have explored how Hitler had taken over Germany, how his leadership affected the 1936 Olympics, and how he had used the concentration camps to get rid of the people he hated. Of course there are still many facts about what happened during and after the Second World War, but there are far too many to cover in one documentary. Thank you for watching and good night.